Good evening. I'm Hannah Aria Geifman, the director of the Tisch Center for the Arts here at 92nd Street Y. And for those of you who don't know, the Unterberg Poetry Center is part of that center. And I have the greatest pleasure and greatest honor not only to welcome you to our new season, but also to present our new director of the Unterberg Poetry Center. Please welcome Betsy Barner.
Good evening, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you to the opening night of the Poetry Center's 68th season of literary events. This is the first time that Uzodinma Iweala and Zadie Smith will read in Kaufman Concert Hall. Ms. Smith will be introduced by Heidi Julewitz and Mr. Iweala by Jamaica Kincaid. I would like to take this opportunity to thank those individuals listed in our program this evening whose significant contributions as benefactors, patrons, sponsors, or muses have helped to make our new season possible. In particular, I would like to thank the co-chairs of the Poetry Center Committee, John Greenwood and Eva Colin-Usdan, for their continued support. The Poetry Center is indebted to Victoria Rowan, who stepped in as artistic programmer last December when David Yezi moved on to become executive editor of the New Criterion. We're grateful to our media partners, Time Out New York and Poets and Writers, for helping to make this a special evening. I wanted to encourage those of you attending as single ticket holders this evening to consider becoming Poetry Center members. We have a wonderful season ahead, including readings by Michael Chabon, E.L. Doctorow, Deborah Eisenberg, Lawrence Ferlinghetti, Jack Gilbert, Edna O'Brien, Kay Ryan, Sam Shepard, and Gore Vidal, just to name a few. A membership of $250 admits you to all 33 events in the main reading series. Membership is the only way to be assured seats at sold-out events. And to make this offer even more irresistible, we will apply the cost of tonight's ticket against a Poetry Center membership. Simply present your ticket stub at the Y box office. Those of you new to the 92nd Street Y might not know that you are sitting in a sacred space. Since 1939, our Poetry Center has hosted readings by the most influential writers of the 20th and 21st centuries. One membership privilege you might not be aware of is exclusive access to archival recordings of Poetry Center programs. Over the past couple of years, we have begun to digitize our entire Y archive. Some of the older readings from acetate reel-to-reels, in part with the Save America's Treasures grant from the National Endowment of the Arts. We hope that our members will take advantage of this very special privilege by visiting our library, where you may listen to the voices of W.H. Auden, Saul Bellow, Tennessee Williams, and Carson McCullers, Dorothy Parker, E. Cummings, Wallace Stevens, August Wilson, Isabel Allende, Italo Calvino, W.G. Sebald, and Susan Sontag, among many others. The next event in our reading series will be a memorial for the poet Stanley Kunitz, with his daughter Gretchen Kunitz, and the poets Mark Doty, Marie Howe, Galway Cannell, Janine Lentine, and Sharon Olds. Please note that this event is free and open to the public. I hope you will join us this Wednesday evening, September 20th at 8 p.m. The doors will open at 7:15. Following tonight's readings, both writers have kindly agreed to answer questions from the audience. Simply approach either microphone at the front of the aisles and ask your question. Afterward, we invite you all to join us for a book signing in the art gallery just next door. Copies of books by both writers will be available for purchase at that time, courtesy of Barnes & Noble. Heidi Julewitz is the author of 3 novels, The Mineral Palace, The Effect of Living Backwards, and The Uses of Enchantment, which will be published this October, and from which she will read here at the Poetry Center on November 6th. She has collaborated on a book with the artist Jenny Gage called Hotel Andromeda, and is a founding editor of The Believer, a monthly books and culture magazine published by McSweeney's. Jamaica Kincaid is the author of the short story collection At the Bottom of the River and the novels Annie John, Lucy, The Autobiography of My Mother, and most recently, Mr. Potter. Her books of essays are A Small Place, Poetics of Place, My Garden, Talk Stories, a collection of pieces she wrote for the New Yorker magazine, where she was a staff writer from 1976 to 1995, and Among Flowers, A Walk in the Himalayas. In 2005, she guest edited a volume of the best American travel writing. Currently, she teaches at Harvard University. Please welcome Jamaica Kincaid as she introduces Uzodinma Iweala.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's a great honor. People always say that, but it really is a great honor and a pleasure to be here tonight to introduce Uzo, whom you will see. His book is called Beast of No Nation, and his name is Uzodinma Iweala. I never really knew how to pronounce his name properly, and there was never any reason to, because he was just Uzo, my wonderful student. This is what I wanted to say to you about him. I know from a distance a wonderful man, a great American writer and literary critic, a professor emeritus at Harvard University, and his name is Dan Aaron. He's around 90 years old by now, but I only know this because he has told me so. I don't remember exactly the conversation we had, which led him to say to me, "The secret to being young is always to know people younger than you are." I do remember laughing on hearing it, and I do remember at the time that I should not forget it, that the secret to being young is to know people younger than you are, and you always do if you are a teacher. I'm thinking of Dan Aaron as I write this because standing before me is a writer, a young one, who makes me, at my age, I had the privilege of being one of his teachers, feel young and new again. I've been asked to introduce to you Uzodinma Iweala. I know his name now, but when I first met him, I couldn't pronounce it properly, which didn't bother me at all, for I was not interested in that, his name. I was so taken by what he wrote. I was given a pile of manuscripts from which I should choose 2 students to advise regarding their thesis. I chose Uzo and his friend, though I did not know that at the time, a young man named Ian Mackenzie, from whom I think one day you will hear from also. That year, seeing the 2 of them is among my most treasured memories of being a teacher, for it made me revisit my own beginnings as a writer. This book, Beast of No Nation, from which you will read tonight, is powerful because it will shock, as it did me then when I first read it in dribs of sentences, in dribs of paragraphs, and then eventually the whole thing, the novel before you, and alter the parameters of the world as we, even me, know it. The world that Iweala, and what fun for me to call him that, because as I say, I always call him Uzo. The world he invokes in his novel is, to me, a world that has been defeated and banished. That world could no easily make a metaphor or simile, or even evoke an image familiar to us. I take a quote from his book. Time is passing, time is not passing. Day is changing to night, night is changing to day. How can I know what is happening? It is like one day everything is somehow okay, even if we are fighting war, but the next day we are killing and looting from everybody. How can I know what is happening to me? How can I know? How can I know is the question any serious writer asks himself, how can I know? When I first saw this book, this novel, in its embryonic stages, its raw desire to exist, was always amazing. The narrator of this book has a voice. He speaks in sentences that a reader or a listener or hearer, so to speak, can understand immediately at first contact, but then as the voice reverberates, echoes, comes back into your consciousness, the reader, this reader at any rate, is made queasy, not only physically, but mentally too. For he says things that are out of the ordinary for a child. He is a soldier, a warrior, and yet not, for soldiers and warriors kill or are killed. That is their purpose. That is their occupation, dead or not, alive or not. But this narrator is not like that. He does not place himself in a noble tradition or even a tragic one. He feels he comes out of nowhere, displaced from everything, mother, father, family, country, everything that might make him an individual, that is, someone who might treasure or dismiss or mourn his ordinariness, the warmth of the sun, the forever sameness of the moon above, his very life stilled into a universal eternity. To see such moral authority in an author so young astonished me, of course, but more than that, I was fascinated. How could someone so young and in a position of privilege, he was 21 years then and about to graduate from Harvard, how could he be so knowing, so familiar with the underdepths of the known world, so full of empathy, with such an ability to know what to keep and what to discard, and in that, displaying an innate understanding of what is just and good, and its opposite, injustice and evil. So brave, so willing to risk the scorn and derision of a world that might dismiss him as too earnest and not funny and not soothing and not sampling or referring to anything already established. Beasts of No Nation is a book that astonished me as a reader in every way, for it shows again the lone human being vulnerable, but especially so, if you are a child, to sweeping events, whose origins might as well be in another galaxy, for all the sense anything makes. It inspired me, making me feel young again, as if writing was so new, a path I did not know could be taken again. And bring me back to Dan Aaron, from whom I will adapt. The way to stay young is to know young writers. And tonight, I gather they're the two youngest writers to have had an opening here. So please welcome Uzo.
Thank you very much, Jamaica. I think I have to say before you go that being your student was probably the most incredible experience that I've ever had, and to have a teacher like you is something that people dream about, but it's a dream that I guess doesn't come true for a lot of people. But for me and for Ian and for Elliot, who's here, who if he is here should make himself known. You were much, much more than just a teacher. You were a friend, and you don't know this, but we talk about you as if you were our mom. So I have something for you, and I think Elliot does too. This is on behalf of all of those you've taught and whose lives you've changed. So thank you very much. I have to say, this is probably the coolest thing ever. Wow. Well, thank you, everybody. And thank you, Jamaica, again, for that introduction. That's to hear that. I was like shaking inside. I'm still shaking now. But I guess I'll stop talking about other things and start talking about what I'm going to read to you. I'm going to read a chapter from Beasts of No Nation. It's a novel about... I need to calm down for a sec. It's a novel about a young boy who's in West Africa, who's involved in a conflict over there. He's probably about anywhere from 9 to 12, and he is abducted by a group of rebel soldiers and then forced to fight. So essentially his life just in an instant pretty much changes from what he knew before into this experience that he has to go through. I'm going to read from the second chapter, which is, I'll say right now, a tough chapter to read and a tough chapter, I guess, to hear, because it deals with a lot of things that are not so pleasant, but that unfortunately are the norm of people who are forced into this situation. In this chapter, Agu, who's the main character, the young boy, is forced. He's forced to kill for the first time in his life. And you'll meet a number of characters. I guess Agu, of course, then Striker, who's his best friend, the commandant, who's the leader of this rebel troop and sort of a father figure to Agu, and then lieutenant, who's the second in command of the rebel troop. But I won't stop talking and start reading. Lieutenant is saying, don't think, just let it happen. He is saying the second you are stopping to think about it, your head is turning to the inside of rotten fruit. Commandant is saying it is like falling in love. You cannot be thinking about it. You are just having to do it, he is saying. And I am believing him. What else can I be doing? They're all saying, stop worrying, stop worrying. Soon it will be your own turn, and then you will know what it is feeling like to be killing somebody. Then they are laughing at me and spitting on the ground near my feet. We are stopping on the road, and Striker and myself are just sitting in the back of one truck, kicking the air with our leg and sweating with the sun. The wind is blowing softly in my ear and on my skin, and I am looking at Striker and thinking of all the things I am learning as soldier. I am learning to march left, right, how to hide in the bush and stay very still so nobody can be seeing where I am. How to be walking one foot in front of the other so nobody can be hearing me. Running, jumping, rolling around on the ground and singing all of the soldier song that we are singing when we are working or marching. I am liking the older men and how they are carrying gun and always looking so tough like they are in movie. And I'm trying to be acting like them. But sometimes I'm thinking of my home and my mother and father and sister and I am saddening. And I'm thinking about Striker and asking myself why he is not even saying one word this whole time I am soldier. If I am asking him question, then he is only shaking his head yes or no. So I'm asking him all the time, even now while we are just sitting here waiting. Are you Striker? And he is nodding yes. Are you having parents? And he is shaking his head no. Are you liking plantain? Nodding yes. Fish? Yes. Pear? Yes. Are you stupid? No. Why are you not talking? No answer. What is it like to be killing somebody? No answer. Striker? He is looking at me. And then one scout they are calling Hope is shouting and running up the road. He is coming from the bush and yelling, they are coming, oh, they are coming again. And as he is running, he is tripping on himself, running up the hill, and all his muscles are moving, even after he is stopping, so he cannot be standing still. His gun is banging against his back like it is beating him to run faster, faster, faster. And I am laughing because he is looking not just like madman, but mad horse. Commandant is exciting softly, softly when he is seeing the scouts running for his life up the hill. Eh? He is saying. And I'm watching how he is folding his hand together and how his lip is just crawling to be smiling. Commandant is starting to sweating, and I'm seeing how his shirt is also soaking through with sweat. Lieutenant is leaving him alone and looking like he is trying to find somewhere to be hiding. Commandant is thinking, and I'm liking to watch him thinking. He is putting his one hand in all of his big hairs and the other to be picking his beard and walking up and down and backward and forward like he is in cage, even if we are really standing outside in the open air. Then he is shouting, "Order! Move this truck across the road. Park this truck here. Everybody take your position. You in the bush, speed up, quick, quick, quick." And we are all moving very quickly to do all of the thing he is saying. We are causing so much confusion and chasing the small animal from the bush onto the road. Lizard and bush rat and frog, they're all hopping and running and jumping. They're all running on the road, running around the road like chicken with no head, just looking for a place to be hiding. Striker is jumping up and down and grabbing his machete and then running to behind the tire of one truck blocking the road. I am following him because I am not knowing where to go. But I am putting myself behind the back wheel because there is not even enough space for two of us behind one wheel. Everybody is moving, rushing, jumping, hiding, and making noise until just like that, it is quieting everywhere, and it is only looking like truck is breaking down on the road. Even before the war, this is always happening. And now it is happening even more because war is making it very hard to be fixing anything. I'm sitting behind this tire, holding knife and waiting. I'm watching mosquitoes everywhere moving around in circles like they are also waiting for something. If they are coming near to me, then I am beating them with my hand. But it is not doing anything. There are so many. I am looking out from behind my tire, and down the road the air is shaking just like still water if you are throwing rock into it. And then I am seeing small truck moving closer, moving slowly like cow. They are not even thinking anything is wrong, and I am almost laughing and almost dying because my heart is beating so fast, and I am thinking about what is going to happen. They are not even knowing we are here and just coming to us like idiots. The first truck is stopping some meter from where I am hiding. I am looking around the tire into the eye of driver. His window is shining with so much sun, but somehow it is still looking dark. Next to him, one man with uniform is making sign. His face is scrunching up with fear, and it is looking like his lip is pulling down all of his face, his nose, his eye, his eyebrow. They are looking at each other, and then the driver is just disappearing behind the steering wheel. I'm remembering the soldiers who are coming to my village, and I'm holding my machete closer. I am liking how it is feeling in my hand, like it is almost part of my body. I am looking at the man and looking at Striker, and I'm saying to myself, if it is time to be killing, I am ready. But I am putting my hand between my leg because I am feeling like I need to be going to the toilet. My heart is beating bump, 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 and I'm finding it hard to be breathing. But still, I am saying, God will be helping me. I am ready. I am watching. The enemy is not even trying to fight, and is just looking too tiring to be even thinking anything like fight, wahala, wahala. Even if they are not yet seeing a soldier anywhere on the road, they are just jumping down from their truck, looking like they are going to cry, please do not shoot us, the man in uniform is saying. We are not having any weapon or any food or any ammo or any money, anything, please, just let us go. I am counting them. There are only 20, and they are looking like they are already dead. Blood is just covering all of their clothes and skin, sometimes even their eye. But I cannot be knowing if it is their blood or another person's blood. And they are even walking so slow, like old man with walking stick. Excuse me. The head man of the enemy is shouting, see, our hand is up and we are not having gun, no weapon at all. There is silence. And then I'm hearing Commandant shouting from the grass by the road, number 1, this territory is belonging to all of us rebel. You are trespassing. Number 2, take off all of your clothes and put them on the road. Number 3, lie down with your face on the ground and your hands stretching all the way out. If you're not doing this in 10 seconds, we will be shooting you dead. Are you understanding me? I'm watching the enemy looking at each other, and I'm counting 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 10. But they are not taking off their clothes. Then I'm hearing quap, like 1 million people clapping, and bing, when bullet is hitting the metal door of the enemy truck. The enemy is looking at each other and whispering until Commandant is shouting from the bush, come on, I said, off your clothes. Everybody take off your clothes right now. Then the enemy is taking off their clothes very fast, just ripping the shirt and ripping trouser and throwing it to the ground. Their body is shining with sweat in the sun, and the mosquito is coming to them slowly, slowly. Some of them are having underwear full of hole, covering their thing. And others are having to use hand to be keeping everybody from seeing it. Lie down, Commandant is shouting. Put your hand on the ground. They are lying down, and I can see the tear on the face of one enemy. He is coughing and sniffling and whispering. I think he is saying, I'm not wanting to die. Please, God, I'm not wanting to die. But I'm too far away to be hearing him. I think this is what he is saying. And I'm looking at him and even feeling sorry for him. But then I'm remembering my father. Commandant is coming out of the bush, smiling and sweating, and holding his gun ready to shoot anybody who is not following his order. Behind him, everybody else is coming from the bush from all sides, until there is not even any one place for the men to be running. Striker is coming out from behind his wheel, and I am following him. He's collecting all of the enemy uniform and taking them to the truck. The mosquito is getting closer and closer. "Who is the leader?" Commandant is shouting. But nobody is answering. He is walking up and using his weapon to touch the enemy who is talking first and begging, "Please do not shoot us." "You, where are your weapons?" He is shouting. "Get up, where are they?" The man is saying, "We don't want trouble, though. We don't have any weapon." But Commandant is saying, "Oh, this enemy dog is not wanting trouble." And everybody, excepting me and Striker, who is never making any noise, is laughing. "Kehi, kehi, kehi," like it is the best joke in the whole world. Commandant is kicking the enemy man in the stomach very hard, and the man is just dropping onto his knee and vomiting all over the ground. Commandant is shouting, "Search the truck, search the truck!" And the 3 soldiers are running to search the truck. Then Commandant is telling me, "Agu, come here, eh? Come here right now." And then he is telling the enemy chief to kneel down, even though the man is already kneeling down and vomiting. I am standing in my place and I am just fearing. I am not wanting to be killing anybody today. I am not ever wanting to be killing anybody. "Bloody fool," he is saying to me, "come here and bring that machete." But I am not moving. Commandant is stepping to me and grabbing my neck. "You idiot," he is shouting. Come here right now." He is dragging me to the enemy soldier. "Do you see this dog?" he is shouting. "You want to be a soldier, eh? Well, kill him. Kill him now." I am starting to cry and I am starting to shaking. And in my head I am shouting, "No, no, no," but my mouth is not moving and I am not saying anything. And I am thinking, if I am killing, then I am going to hell. So I'm smelling fire and smoke and it is hard to breathe. So I'm just standing there, crying, shaking, looking. Then I am seeing, just like that, one enemy soldier is trying to run from the bush. His thing is bouncing up and down and his bottom is slapping until I'm hearing gunshot. And then seeing his flesh from his legs scattering on the road. He is falling to the ground, but he is not even saying anything. Not screaming or crying or shouting, but he is still moving, just dragging his naked body with his arm and one leg like he can still be running away. Nobody is even looking at him anymore, but I'm hearing the sound of his moving, and it is sounding like lizards scratching on the roof. I am shaking and holding my thing. I am wanting to vomit. "Nobody is moving," Commandant is yelling. "Anybody who is trying to run away will not be having leg to run with. Understand?" "Please, sir, please, oh, we are not doing anything," the enemy man is saying from the ground, and looking like cow because he is putting his hand for ground and just breathing like cow is making noise. "Please, sir," and his tears running down his face. They are mixing with his sweat and he is blinking so much. "Please now, sir, don't just kill us, oh. Just take us. Make us POW, please, oh, we don't have anything." "Sir," one of the men is jumping down from the enemy truck and shouting to the commandant who is looking up from the enemy chief and watching the soldier throw down 4 guns, too big, too small. They are opening up their hand to be showing that they are not finding anything else. Commandant's eye is flashing and he is slapping the enemy soldier with the back of his hand. "You are a liar," he is shouting and hitting him again and again and again. "Liar and idiot, stupid somebody." I am watching the man as he is just falling onto his hands and knees, just spitting blood onto the road. Commandant is kicking him, and I'm hearing "code" knocking inside my head. He is opening his trouser and pulling out his thing and saying to me, "See, Agu, see how we are dealing with this enemy." And I'm hearing "Sss," and seeing how Commandant is squeezing his eye and mouth and teeth while he's just going to toilets all over the enemy man. "Ah," he is saying when he is closing his trouser. And everybody is laughing, "Kehi, kehi, kehi." See this bloody goat? Get up, you bloody fool. Kneel. Come on, kneel. None of the other enemy is even looking up from the ground. Some of them is going to toilet and making the whole air to stink. I'm spitting because there is too much saliva in my mouth. Kill him, Commandant is saying in my ear, and lifting my hand high with machete. Kill him, oh. The enemy is saying to me, please don't kill me, oh please, I beg, please, God will bless you. And each time he is talking, he's spraying saliva and blood everywhere. Then he is starting to piss, and he cannot even be stopping himself. See this man, Commandant is saying, look at him. He's not even man. He's just going to toilet like sheep or goat or dog. He is grabbing my neck and whispering into my ear, kill him now, because I'm not having the time, oh. If you are not killing him, lieutenants will be thinking you are a spy. And who can know if he won't just be killing you? He's squeezing my hand around the handle of the machete, and I'm feeling the wood in my finger and in my palm. It is just like killing goats. Just bring this hand up and knock him well. He's taking my hand and bringing it down so hard on top of the enemy's head. And I'm feeling like electricity is running through my whole body. The man is screaming, "Eh!" louder than the sound of bullet whistling. And then he is bringing his hand to his head, but it is not helping because his head is cracking and the blood is spilling out like milk from coconut. I'm hearing laughing all around me, even as I'm watching him trying to hold his head together. He is annoying me, and I'm bringing the machete up and down and hearing "wada" every time, and seeing just pink while I'm hearing the laughing, "kehi, kehi, kehi," all around me. Then I'm hitting his shoulder, and then his chest, and looking at how Commandant is smiling each time my knife is hitting the man. Striker is joining me, and we are just beating him and cutting him while everybody is laughing. It's like the whole world is moving so slowly. Now I'm seeing each drop of blood and each drop of sweat flying here and there. I'm hearing the bird flapping their wing as they are leaving all the tree. It's sounding like thunder. I'm hearing the mosquito buzzing in my ear, so loud, and I'm feeling how the blood is just wetting on my leg and on my face. The enemy body is having deep red cuts everywhere, and his forehead is looking just crushed, so his whole face is not even looking like face, because his head is broken everywhere, and there's just blood. I'm vomiting everywhere. I cannot be stopping myself. Commandant is saying it's like falling in love, but I'm not knowing what that is meaning. I'm feeling hammer knocking in my head and chest. My nose and mouth is itching. I'm seeing all of the color everywhere, and my belly is feeling empty. I'm growing hard between my leg. Is this like falling in love? Then I am falling down on the road and just watching as they are killing everybody, just cutting arm and using it to be beating somebody else's head. And I'm watching the man with his leg shot, still scratching down the road as if he can be going somewhere. His leg is leaving trail like leaking car, and I'm seeing mosquito everywhere, flying in circle all around us. Thank you.
Hi. So I was kind of wondering why I was invited to do this introduction tonight. I'm realizing now there's a teacher-student thing going on here. Jamaica was Uzodinma's writing teacher, and I'm actually Zadie's yoga teacher. So I was thinking maybe of scrapping my intro altogether, and maybe we could do some of Zadie's favorite hip openers as a way to kind of welcome her onto the stage. Anyways, not to repeat what everyone has said, but it is an honor to be here tonight, especially to introduce someone whose work I so admire. The clue to the work of the writer we've come to hear tonight lies in the following sentences. which were, after a title page, a quote from The Tempest, a paragraph of acknowledgments, and a table of contents, the first words I'd ever read by this person, Zadie Smith, except that they weren't by Zadie Smith. They were by E.M. Forster. Every little trifle, for some reason, does seem incalculably important today. And when you say of a thing that nothing hangs on it, it sounds like blasphemy. There's never any knowing how am I to put it. Which of our actions, which of our idlenesses won't have things hanging on it forever? Doctoral students, trash your files. Forster has more concisely articulated the impulse that drives a Zadie Smith novel than you ever will, and he beat you to the punch by a century. These sentences are a precursor to Forster's only connect dictum, a dictum Smith has taken to heart and torqued to fit the increasingly hectic molecular collision that is our time. In doing so, she's become not only one of the world's most celebrated writers, she has become a cultural icon of intelligence, bookishness, sophistication, fashion, wit. While Forster was never cited, unjustly, I suspect, for his exceptional taste in vintage frocks, he did in his day struggle to make sense of how the human mind, having recently switched from horse buggy to railway car, strained to make sense of its surroundings, now whipping past as an industrial agrarian blur. Smith also locates the rapid patterns emerging from the random interactions between people who, in Forster's time, rarely occupied the same hemisphere, much less the same train compartment, and had certainly never logged onto the internet such as it existed in 1910. She is a good human agitator, a purposeful collider not only of circumstances and individual actions, but of wars, technological advances, academic camps, races, religions, ages, educational backgrounds, weirdo predilections, musical tastes, moral systems. Inner city rap kids bonk up against the kids of art history professors, the toothful bonk up against the toothless, whites bonk up against blacks, against Chinese, against Pakistanis, against feminists, against misogynists, against adulterers. But Smith isn't orchestrating a novel-sized peace conference, one that concludes with a forced and cheery Cyndi Lauper-led a cappella sing-along. Often these people don't like each other. Often their impact on one another is initially negative or hurtful or rebuking or shameful. Often, too, it is funny. She is a promoter of engagement, and through this engagement, she strives to make sense of the chaos, even if further chaos, like heartbreak or an unhappy marriage, results. Life can be explained not through kismet or God or even coincidence, but through a logic proof of causes and effects that hinge on human weakness and desire. Archie did not pluck Clara Bowden from a vacuum, Smith writes in White Teeth. Clara was from somewhere. She had roots. More specifically, she was from Lambeth via Jamaica, and she was connected through tacit adolescent agreement to one Ryan Topps. Because before Clara was beautiful, she was ugly, and before there was Clara and Archie, there was Clara and Ryan. And there is no getting away from Ryan Topps. Ryan Topps is essential to any understanding of why Clara did what she did. Ryan is indispensable. So, tonight we have overcome our various idlenesses and left our apartments. We were late getting out the door because we checked our email and couldn't find our keys. Then we stopped to grab a coffee and ran into a hopelessly chatty friend who caused us to miss the express train. Whatever future occurrences hang forever on your actions tonight, the stops you made, the people you spoke with, all this remains to be revealed. What I can say for certain is that the presence of Zadie Smith is essential to any understanding of why you did what you did tonight. Zadie Smith is, in so many ways, indispensable to the way we understand ourselves. It is my honor to welcome Zadie Smith.
Hello. Thank you. It's a real honor to share the stage with these three writers. They're all extraordinary. The reading order tonight reminds me a bit of the situation in ancient Greece, where first you'd have the tragedian come on with his honorable and beautiful and profound demonstration of the human drama, and then the comedian would come out with a 6-foot phallus made of papier-mâché. So I hope you'll excuse my 6-foot phallus made of papier-mâché. I have to show it to you once again. This bit of the book is about Howard, who's been married 30 years, and he's recently had an affair with a colleague. He's an academic. And his wife has somewhat forgiven him, and they're doing not great, but okay. But she doesn't know that he's recently messed up again, this time with a student who is the daughter of one of his colleagues. And there's going to be some bad accents, as usual. Prepare. In January, at the first formal of the year, the tremendous willpower of Wellington's female students is revealed. Unfortunately for the young women, this demonstration of pure will is credited to femininity, that most passive of virtues, and as a result doesn't contribute to their grade point average. It's unfair. Why are there no awards for the girl who starves herself through the Christmas period, refusing all food so that she might appear at the January formal and fit into a backless dress and toeless shoes, although the temperature is near to freezing and the snow is heavy on the ground? Howard, who wore a floor-length overcoat, gloves, leather shoes, and a thick college scarf, stood by Emerson's front gate and watched with real awe the mist of white flakes falling upon bare shoulders and hands, the clothed men holding their near-naked, decorative partners, as together they stepped round puddles and snowdrifts like ballroom dancers on an assault course. They all looked like princesses, but what steel must lurk within? "Evening, Belsie," said an old historian of Howard's acquaintance. Howard nodded his greeting and let the young man pass. Let the man pass. The historian's companion for the evening was a young man. Howard thought they both looked happier than the mixed-sex student-faculty partners passing intermittently through the gateway. It was an old tradition, this dinner, this thing of taking a student, but it was not quite a comfortable one. It was never the same teaching the student in question after seeing them in their glad rags, though, of course, in Howard's case, that line had already been crossed, and then some. Howard heard the first dinner bell go, the call for people to take their seats. He kept his hands in his pockets and waited. It was too cold even to smoke a cigarette. He looked up and across at Wellington Square, at the glinting white spires of the college, and the evergreen trees still strung with Christmas lights. In this bitter weather, Howard's eyes watered incessantly. For him, all electric light spread and twinkled. Street lamps sent out fountains of sparks. Traffic signals transformed into natural phenomena, glowing and pulsing like aurora borealis. She was 10 minutes late now. The wind was blowing the snow up off the ground in horizontal sweeps. The quad behind him looked like Arctic tundra. Another 5 minutes. Howard wandered across to Emerson Hall itself and stationed himself just inside the doors so he would not miss her. With everybody already seated, he was left with the waiting staff, so black in their white shirts, holding high those trays of Wellington shrimp that always looked much better than they tasted. They were informal back here, laughing and whistling, speaking their boisterous Creole, touching each other. Nothing like the silent, docile servers that they became in Hall. Now a queue of them lined up just near Howard with their platters, jiggling impatiently like footballers in a tunnel, ready to run onto the pitch. A loud clatter of a side door made everyone turn to look at the same time, Howard included. 15 white young men in matching black suits and gold waistcoats walked into the hallway. They quickly arranged themselves in a staggered formation on the main stairs. The fattest of them now sang a clear, steady note, with which the rest harmonized until there was an almost unbearably pleasant chord in the air. It vibrated so brutally that Howard felt it in his body, like standing beside a loud sound system. The front door opened. "Shit, sorry I'm late. Sorry, clothes crisis." Victoria, dressed in a very long overcoat, brushed the snow from her shoulders. The young men, apparently satisfied with their sound check, stopped singing and trooped back into the room from which they'd come. A spatter of applause, which sounded distinctly ironic, came from the waiters. "You're very late," said Howard, frowning after the retreating singers, but Victoria didn't answer. She was busy taking off her coat. Howard turned back round. "What do you think?" she asked, although there could be no question of the answer. She wore a shimmering white trouser suit, cut low. Apparently there was nothing underneath it. The waist was as neat could be. Her backside was impertinent. Her hair had changed again. This time it was parted on the side and slicked down with pomade, like in those old photos of Josephine Baker. Her lashes appeared longer than usual. Every man and woman in the line of waiters fixed their eyes upon her. "God, you look," attempted Howard. "Yeah, well, I thought one of us should wear a nice suit." They walked into the hall at the same time as the servers and were thankfully obscured by them. Howard feared all activity and conversation in this room would cease if these diners were squarely confronted with the impossible beauty walking beside him. They took their seats at a long table that ran along the east wall. There were 4 professors at this table with their Emerson student dates, and the rest of the places would be taken by freshmen from other halls who'd paid for their tickets. This pattern was repeated throughout the hall. At a table near the front stage, Howard spotted Monty Kipps. He was sitting with a black girl who wore her hair in a similar style to Victoria's. She and all the other students at the table were focused on Monty, presently speechifying in familiar style. "Your father's here?" "Yes," said Victoria innocently, spreading her white napkin over her white lap. "He's Emerson too, didn't you know?" For the first time it occurred to Howard that this gorgeous, single 19-year-old, giving her attention to a 57-year-old married man, albeit with a full head of hair, might have other motives besides pure animal passion. Was he, as Levi, his son, would put it, being played? But Howard was disrupted from further thought on this subject by an old man in cap and gown who rose, welcomed them all, and said something very long and very dull in Latin. The bell rang again. The servers entered. The overhead lights dimmed, allowing the table candles to offer their flickering illumination. The wine waiters went round, bending delicately over the diner's left shoulder and finishing each pour with a twist of the bottle. The starter followed. This consisted of 2 of the shrimp Howard had spotted in the hall, laid next to a bowl of clam chowder with its accompanying packet of croutons. Howard had spent 10 years wrestling with these little packets of Wellington Town croutons and had learned to leave them alone. Victoria ripped hers open and sent 3 flying into Howard's chest. This made her laugh. Her laugh was charming. She was off-duty somehow when she laughed. But then the performance continued. She broke open her bread roll and spoke to him in that arch, satirical style she seemed to think was flirtatious. On his other side, a shy, plain girl visiting from MIT was attempting to explain to him the kind of experimental physics she did. As he ate, Howard tried to listen. He made a point of asking many interested questions. He hoped this would lessen the effect of Victoria's frank disinterest. But after 10 minutes, he ran out of viable questions. Physicist and art historian met their match in technical terms that could not be translated in 2 worlds that wouldn't coalesce. Howard drank down his second glass of wine and excused himself to go to the toilet. "Howard, a nice place to meet. God, these things, eh? These fucking things. Once a year and it's still too bloody often." It was his colleague, Erskine, drunk, swaying. He came and stood beside Howard, unzipped himself. Howard could not piss next to people he knew. He pretended he'd just finished and moved to the sink. "You look like you're coping, Ersk. How did you manage to get that much drink down your neck already?" "I've been drinking for an hour just to prepare myself. John Flanders, know him?" "I don't think so." "You're lucky. My most boring, ugliest, stupidest pupil. Why? Why is it always the students you least want to spend time with who want to spend time with you?" "It's passive-aggressive," joked Howard, soaping his hands. "They know you don't like them and they're trying to catch you out, get you off your guard and drunk enough so you'll admit it." Erskine finished his strenuous piss with a sigh, zipped up and joined Howard at the sinks. "And you?" Howard looked up at his own image in the mirror. "Victoria Kipps." Erskine whistled lasciviously, and Howard knew what was coming. Talk of attractive women always stripped Erskine's mask of charm from his face. It was a side of him Howard had always known, but chose not to dwell upon. Drink made it worse. "That girl," Erskine whispered, shaking his head. "She makes my eyes sting. You have to have your cock strapped to your leg when you pass that girl in a corridor." "Don't you roll your eyes at me. Come on, you're not such an angel, Howard. We all know that now. She's something. You'd have to be blind not to see it. How can she be related to a walrus like Monty?" "She's a good-looking girl," agreed Howard. He put his hands under the dryer, hoping the noise would shut Erskine up. "Boys these days, they're lucky. You know that? A generation of girls know how to use their bodies. They understand their own power. When I married Caroline, she was beautiful, yes, of course. Like a southern schoolgirl in bed, like a child. And now we're too old. We dream, but we can't touch. To have Miss Kipps, but those days are gone. Erskine hung his head in cod misery and followed Howard out of the restroom. It took some restraint on Howard's part not to tell Erskine that he had touched, that his day was not yet over. He quickened his step a little, eager to return to the table. Hearing another man speak of Victoria that way had made him want her again. Once more into the breach, said Erskine, at the door to the hall, rubbing his hands together, and left Howard for his own table. A stream of servers were leaving as they came in. Howard felt his whiteness as they all pressed past him. He was like a tourist making his way through a crowded Caribbean alleyway. At last he made his seat. He had a passing pornographic thought as he sat down, of slipping his fingers into V under the table, of bringing her in this way to climax. Reality asserted itself. She was wearing trousers. And she was busy, speaking very loudly, addressing the shy girl, the boy next to her, the boy next to him. Their faces suggested to Howard that Victoria had not stopped speaking since he left the table. But then that's just the kind of person I am, she was saying. I'm the kind of person who feels that kind of behavior is beyond the pale. And that's just the way I am. I don't make any apologies. I feel I deserve that respect. I'm very clear about my boundaries. Howard picked up a piece of card in front of him to find out what was to follow on the menu. Singing, corn-fed chicken wrapped in Parma ham on a bed of sweet pea risotto. The company is addressed by Dr. Emily Hartman. Key lime pie. Of course, Howard had known it was coming, but he had not known it would come so soon. He felt he had not had the chance to compose himself properly. It was too late now to leave again. The bell was ringing. And here they came, those boys in their gold waistcoats, with their F. Scott Fitzgerald heritage haircuts and ruddy faces. They made their way to the stage amid much applause. One might say they jogged towards it. Once again they arranged themselves in staggered formation, tallest at the back, blondes in the middle, and the fat guy front and centre. The fat guy opened his mouth and let out that bell-like note, alive with old Boston money. His fellows harmonised perfectly. Howard felt the familiar trouble coming on behind his eyes, which had instantly filled with water. He bit his lip and pressed his knees together. This was all going to be made much, much worse by the fact he hadn't emptied his bladder. Around his table, 9 perfectly straight faces directed themselves to the stage, awaiting entertainment. The room was silent, apart from the tremulous chord. Howard felt Victoria touch his knee under the table. He removed her hand. He had to concentrate all his energies now into bringing his overdeveloped sense of the ridiculous under the control of his will. How strong was his will? But there are 2 different kinds of glee club in the world. The first type sing barbershop favourites and Gershwin tunes. They swing gently, moving from side to side, and sometimes click their fingers and wink. Howard could basically deal with that type. He'd got through occasions graced by glee clubs of that type. But these boys were not of that type. Swaying and clicking and winking were just how they got warmed up. Tonight, this glee club had chosen as their opener Pride in the Name of Love by U2, which they'd taken the trouble to transform into a samba. They swayed, they clicked, they winked. They did coordinated spins. They switched places with each other, moved forward, they moved back, they always retained their formation. They smiled the kind of smile you might employ when trying to convince a lunatic to quit holding a gun to your mother's head. One of the boys with his lungs began to reproduce the bass line on the record. And now Howard could hold out no longer. He began to shudder, and making a choice between tears and noise, he chose tears. In a few seconds his face was soaked, his shoulders were rolling, and the effort of not making noise was turning his face purple. One of the boys stepped out of his formation to do the moonwalk. Howard held a thick cotton serviette to his face. "Stop it," whispered Victoria and pinched his knee. "Everybody's looking." It surprised Howard that a girl so used to being looked at should hate so much this other kind of stare. Howard apologetically removed the handkerchief, but this had the effect of releasing the noise. A squealing laugh announced itself across the room. It drew the attention of Howard's own table and the 4 tables beside it. It even reached Monty's table, where all of the diners turned their heads, seeking but not yet able to locate the incident disturbance. "What are you doing? Are you serious? Stop it!" Howard mimed incapacity. His squeal turned to a honk. "Excuse me," said a dour female professor on the table behind him, whom he didn't know, "but you're being really rude." But Howard could not find a place to put his face. He could either turn to look at the glee club or turn to face his own dining companions, all of whom were now trying to dissociate themselves from him, leaning back in their chairs, doggedly focusing on the stage. "Please," said Victoria urgently, "this isn't funny. You're actually embarrassing me." Howard turned to look at the glee club. He tried to think of unfunny things: death, divorce, taxes, his father. But something about the fat guy's hand claps pushed him over the brink. He lurched from his chair, knocked it over, picked it up, and escaped down the middle aisle. When Howard got home, he was in that middling state of drunkenness, too drunk for work, not drunk enough for sleep. The house was empty. He went into the living room. Here was Murdoch, the dachshund, curled in on himself. Howard bent down and stroked his little hound face, tugging the brown-pink skin of his jaw. Murdoch stirred crossly. When Jerome, Howard's oldest son, was a baby, Howard liked to go into the nursery and touch his son's crepey head, knowing he would wake, wanting him to. He'd liked that warm, talc-scented company resting in his lap, little baby fingers stretching for the keyboard. But was it a computer back then? No, a typewriter. Howard lifted Murdoch from his stinking basket, hooked him under one arm, and brought him to the bookcase. He passed a restless eye over a rainbow of spines and titles. Every one met with resistance in Howard's soul. He didn't want to read fiction or biography. He didn't want poetry or anything academic written by anyone he knew. Sleepy Murdoch barked softly and got two of Howard's fingers in his mouth. With his free hand, Howard took a turn-of-the-century edition of Alice in Wonderland off the shelf and brought it with Murdoch to the couch. As soon as he was released, Murdoch retreated to his basket. He seemed to look at Howard resentfully as he did so, and once he was in his former position, hid his head beneath his paws. Howard placed a cushion at one end of the sofa and stretched out along it. He opened the book and was drawn to a handful of capitalized phrases. Very. Took a watch out of its waistcoat pocket. Orange marmalade. Drink me. He read a few lines, gave up, looked at the pictures, gave up, closed his eyes. The next thing was a soft, heavy mass weighing down the sofa by his thigh, and then a hand on his face. The porch light was on, bathing the room in amber. Kiki took the book from his hands. Complex stuff. You staying down here? Howard shunted up a little. He brought his hand to his eye and dug from it a hard piece of yellow sleep. He asked the time. It's late? Kids are back, didn't you hear 'em? Howard had not. Did you get back early? I wish you'd told me. I would have asked you to walk the dog. Howard shunted up further and grasped her wrist. Nightcap, he said, and had to repeat it because the first time it was just a croaking sound. Kiki shook her head. Oh, Keeks, please, come on, just one. Kiki pressed her palms into her eye sockets. Howard, I'm real tired. I've had an emotional evening. For me, it's a little late to drink. Please, come on, one. Howard stood and went over to the drinks cabinet by the stereo. He opened the little door and turned to see his wife standing. He looked at her pleadingly. She sighed and sat down. Howard brought over a bottle of amaretto and 2 brandy glasses. It was a drink Kiki loved, and she inclined her head in grudging admission of a good choice. Howard sat close to his wife. So, you were out. How was Tina? Teresa. Nothing followed. Howard accepted the thrum of silent anger, waves of it coming off Kiki. She tapped her finger on the sofa's leather. Well, she's pissed off. Of course she's pissed off. Carlos is a fucking asshole. He's got the lawyers in already. Teresa doesn't even know who the woman is, blah, blah, blah. Little Louie and Angela are devastated. Now they head into court. I have no idea why. They haven't even got any money to fight about. Ah, said Howard, disqualified from saying another word. He poured out 2 glasses of amaretto, passed one to Kiki, and brought his glass to hers. She thinned her eyes at him, but clinked the glass. So, there goes another one, she said. looking through the French doors to the silhouette of their willow tree. This year, just everybody falling apart around us. It's not just us, it's everyone. That's the fourth marriage since the summer. Dominoes. Plop, plop, plop. It's like everybody's marriage was on a timer. It's pathetic. Howard leaned forward with her, but said nothing. You know, it's worse than that. It's predictable. Kiki sighed. She kicked off her slip-on shoes and reached a barefoot out towards the dog. She traced the line of his spine with her big toe. We do need to talk, Howard. Can't go on like this. We need to talk. Howard drew his lips into his mouth and looked at Murdoch. Okay, not now, though, he said. Well, we need to talk. I'm agreeing with you. I'm just saying not now. Not now. Kiki shrugged and continued to stroke Murdoch. She worked her toe under his ear and flipped it over. The porch light now switched itself off and left them in suburban darkness. The only light remaining was the little bulb under the extractor fan in the kitchen. So, how was your dinner? It was embarrassing. Why, Claire there? No, it's not even... They were silent again. Kiki breathed out heavily. I'm sorry. Why was it embarrassing? There was a glee club. In the shadow, Howard could see Kiki smile. She didn't look at him, but she smiled. Oh, Jesus, there was not. Full glee club, gold waistcoats. Kiki, still smiling, nodded rapidly several times. Did they sing Like a Virgin? They sang a U2 song. Kiki passed her plait around to the front of her body and wound it around the end of her wrist. Which one? Howard told her. Frowning, Kiki finished her amaretto and poured herself another. No, I don't know that one. How's it go? Do you mean how does it actually go, or how did they sing it? It wasn't worse than that time, though, couldn't be. Oh, God, I almost died that time. At Yale, said Howard. He'd always been the repository of their dates, their names, their places. He supposed he was feminine that way. The dinner for Lloyd. Yale. The revenge of white boy soul. Oh, my Lord. I had to leave the room. I was weeping tears. He still barely speaks to me because of that one night. Oh, Lloyd's a pompous arse. That's true, mulled Kiki, twirled the stem of her glass in her hand. But you and I still did not behave ourselves well that evening. Howard was aware of Kiki's knee in its rough green silk resting against his own. He couldn't tell yet whether she was similarly aware. This was worse, he said. Kiki whistled. No, she said. No, you are not sitting here telling me it was as bad as Yale. That's just not even possible. It was worse. I don't believe you. I'm sorry. Here Howard, who had a tuneful voice, began an effective impersonation. Kiki held her jaw. She was giggling into her bosom, but now her head jerked back, and out came her big bellow of a laugh. You are making this shit up. Howard shook his head in denial. He kept singing. Kiki wagged her finger at him. No, I need to see the hand signals. It's not the same without all that business. Howard rose from his seat, still singing, and turned to face the sofa. He did nothing physical yet. He had first to envisage the moves and then to fit them to his own badly coordinated body. He panicked for a moment, not able to grasp the idea and the muscles in the same thought. Suddenly it came together. His body knew what to do. He began with a spin and a click. Oh, shut your mouth. I do not believe you. No, they did not. Kiki fell back into the cushions, everything on her wobbling. Howard upped the tempo and the volume, growing more confident and fancy in his footwork. Oh, my God, what did you do? I had to leave, said Howard quickly, and carried on singing. The door of Levi's basement room opened. Yo, keep it down, man. Some of us trying to sleep. Sorry, whispered Howard. He sat down, picked up his glass, and brought it to his mouth, still laughing, hoping to hold her. But at the same moment, Kiki stood up, agitated, like a woman reminded of a task she hadn't completed. She was also still laughing, but not happily. And as the laughter slowed, it became a kind of groan, and then a wispy sigh, and then nothing. She wiped her eyes. Well, she said. Howard put his glass down on the table, ready to say something, but she was already at the doorway. She told him there was a clean sheet for the divan to be found in the upstairs closet. Thank you. Hi. I think Uzo is on his way any moment, probably. We can just hang out in the meantime. Oh, there he is. Hey. There you go. Hello. Oh, great. Oh, my God.
There's a lot of people.
Yeah. Hello. This is comfortable.
They're running away.
Yeah, they've been there droves. Has anyone got any questions before we skip?
Wow, good job, Zadie.
Yeah, good job. High five. So I guess we concluded. Oh, there you go.
Hi. My question is for Uzo. In listening to your text, I'm wondering what your decision was to write in the present continuous and to have a lack of articles and I found your prose so striking in its construction, so I was wondering what your inspiration was for that, reasoning, etc. That's all.
Mm-hmm. Or as my grandfather said, why didn't you write in proper English?
Well,
yeah.
maybe proper English doesn't,
Right.
doesn't pay the bills anymore, I guess.
It had to do with the character and the story that he was telling. I originally started off writing in the third person, and that just didn't really, and Jamaica will tell you that didn't really work very well. But it was about trying to capture the immediacy of the moment and also trying to capture the way that someone from the area that I was writing about would speak. So the language it's not Pidgin English, but it's sort of an adapted form that would potentially be spoken in that place. And then, in a sense, it takes some of those speech patterns and the way that people would use words and use language to tell his story.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hi, good evening. Hi, how you doing? I have a question for you, Zadie, and it's, I've never been to London, England, and I was wondering about something that I've been sort of concerned about here in the States. I'm originally from the Caribbean, and when I first applied to university here, I was sent a form, inquiring about myself and whatnot, and they asked me to choose between two colors and a European label, Latino and black and white. And I found that quite interesting, being that I'm of mixed Spanish and African descent. And I wonder if in England, in London specifically, where I think you live, such diverse cultures as Guatemalans, Argentinians, and us Dominicans are, lumped together under that umbrella.
Sorry, I'm not sure if I understood the end of the question. Do you mean what is it like to live in a culture like that?
No, if the labels like Hispanic and Latino are widely applied to people of mixed ethnicities and cultures, et cetera, et cetera.
Sorry, if the Latino label is is that what you said? Sorry.
Yeah, just if the label is the same label as we have.
Oh, I see. No, there's like little historical differences in definition. Like, for instance, it's quite natural in England to say black and mean both what you would call Pakistani, Bengali, Indian people, and people from African descent. So there's that difference. And then, I don't know, when I was growing up, a popular word for people like me was half-caste, which I never really much cared for. But it's been slowly, chucked out of fashion. But to be honest, I suppose there is a great deal of different terminology for different kinds of people in London, but I don't know how much I know about it. I tend to think of people of where they're from, but also London's a lot like New York in that once you're there, you're a Londoner primarily. I guess I think of myself as a Londoner primarily. So I don't know, I'm probably not the right person to answer that question accurately.
Yes. Hello. My question is for Zadie Smith.
Yeah.
Enjoyed your book immensely. What was the inspiration for the transcontinental or the interracial couple, also intercontinental couple, and set in the U.S.? And is it autobiographical in any way?
Well, the mixed couple, obviously my family of that structure, so when I think of family, I naturally think of, I suppose, difference in that way. A lot of the inspiration, I think I sometimes shoot ahead in my life. So I just got married, and I think part of the writing of it was, this is all very nice, but what would it be like 35 years from now? So sometimes I think that the way I write is a way to kind of make the future safe for myself. At least I know that friends have suggested that might be the case. I think there's some truth in it. And also, I suppose I had a little fear when I first started writing that I was going to become in some way the bard of Willesden Green. I've been living there 30 years, and I thought I really, A, have to leave for a little while, and B, try to write about something else. But actually, since finishing the book, I've become newly fond of being the bard of Willesden Green. So I think I'll be writing a lot more books set in the area that I was born, that I live in, and that I love. But just to try and write about somewhere else was an exercise for me in just an extension of perspective. Also being forced to describe things that in Willesden, don't come along very often, 6-foot snowdrifts or landscapes or trees. So it was interesting to me. It was a challenge.
Hi, the question, I guess it's more for Zadie, because I think your books are really complex. And I wondered, how do you start in terms of writing process? Do you know from the beginning pretty much where you're going, or do you just have a few ideas and then you work from them and then other ideas come up from that?
Well, I usually use the analogy of like if you were playing jazz, so you have some set chords, but then once you start to play, you kind of experiment around the basic setting. But I think for each writer, it's extraordinarily different. I remember once going to see Will Self when he was in the middle of working on something, and his room was wallpapered with Post-it notes, every single stage of his novel perfectly planned out, every line, every chapter, every theme. And then you can look at the plan for Mrs. Dalloway, Virginia Woolf. It's literally 6 bullet points. Leave the house, buy some flowers, meet Septimus, go home. So to me, it's when you ask a writer about their process, it's kind of a useless question because they're always so unbelievably particular. And when I was going to things like this, hoping to be a writer, hearing about people's processes, I just get distressed. If someone says, I wake up at 6 in the morning, I read for 3 hours, I walk the dog, it's down on my head, you think, I must get up at 6 in the morning, walk 3 hours, it's down on my head. So my process is very individual and is very loose, I'd say. I have a kind of general idea for a novel. I don't plan that far ahead. I imagine some of you may have noticed that. And I kind of just, I go day by day, and I don't have great plans, particularly not for the second half of anything. You probably noticed that too.
Thank you, that's comforting.
How you doing? My question is, Zadie, I really enjoyed White Teeth, and Uzi, I look forward to reading more of your work. With you two being the youngest authors to grace this stage, what do you think contributed to your success so quickly, so soon?
Probably the exoticness of being young. That must help. I don't know. Is there? That one's for you. You're honestly young.
Yeah, either one.
I guess I would say probably anybody's, I don't know, let me not sound so silly here, but I guess anybody's success in my mind is a combination of I guess doing your work and then also having a great group of people supporting you and helping you out. So I mean, in my case, I had, obviously, as you all saw, a wonderful teacher, and then in addition, a whole set of other people who were really looking out for me in terms of pushing the book and making sure that it got into the hands of people who would read, review, and then write about it. I mean, in addition, of course, you also have people who really believe in what you're doing, your family members and your friends who are willing to read all those drafts and work with you on making sure that you get to the point where you're supposed to get to, or that you feel happy with what you've written. So, I mean, I think it's both wanting it and also having, of course, a whole set of people who really want you to have it as well.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure listening to you guys.
Hi, this question is for Zadie Smith.
Yeah.
I just wonder, what is the place of satire on beauty? Obviously, the book is suffused by a wonderful sense of the comic, as we just heard. So I was wondering whether you set out to write a kind of a satire of academia.
I think the great truth of questions like that, the writers sometimes give you elaborate and partly theoretical answers, is that the answer to why a writer writes in the way they do is because it's the shape of their brain. It doesn't even... I could never write in a different way. The tone that I have, which I understand from now publishing, appears to be satirical or comic to people, is not so to me, or at least not self-consciously so. When I wrote White Teeth, at least I thought it was a very serious book, and I didn't realize that people found it comic. So that was kind of a shock to me. But I think that's just that's the shape of my brain. But when I was younger, I would have given you a much more defensive answer. But I've learnt to kind of give in to the parts of me I can't stop, and I suppose that's one of them.
I have a question for both of you. First off, I wanted to say, Uzo, congratulations. That passage that you read was really amazing. And I wanted to know, how did you come to write that story? What inspired you to write about a child soldier? And also, Zadie, I read On Beauty, and it was amazing. amazing. And I wanted to know what kind of comment you were trying to make about beauty, because you treated it in so many different ways, and just wanted to know where you were coming from.
You go first.
I guess, so the inspiration for the book actually came, I guess, in two stages. One was when I was, I guess I would say much younger, but I guess to a lot of you that's not very much younger. I was in high school my last year, and I read a Newsweek article about child soldiers in Sierra Leone. And at the time I didn't know, knew stuff was going on, but I didn't know too much about what really was happening on ground there. And so I read that story and was shocked and really disturbed by the whole phenomenon, both the war and also in particular child soldiers. And then later on at Harvard, we have the Harvard African Students Association, and the association ran a speaker series on conflict in Africa my junior year. And we invited one of the speakers was a former child soldier from Uganda named China Ketetsi, who has, was abducted at age 9, then fought for a period of time, then escaped, and now campaigns around the world against the use of children as combatants. And it was listening to her and then speaking with her afterwards that got me sort of back onto the topic again. And in a way that I just couldn't put it aside. So that really fueled sort of the writing of a short story to sort of get into those issues and those things, and then that's what eventually turned into this.
What I was meaning by beauty, that's what you asked in the book. Well, I had been reading a lot of moral philosophy, and I was just interested in the idea of living by essences, which, in our public discussion, we talk quite a lot about living for God, for instance, which is, at least for an atheist, a kind of ineffable quality. But you don't talk so much about living for the idea of the good or the idea of beauty, though you understand that beauty is attached to beautiful women or beautiful shoes or a beautiful building. But I think that's what I was interested in, to try and pin down what do we mean when we say those words, and the fact that people make extraordinary choices in their lives, and governments fall because presidents run off with young girls, or incredible things happen in the pursuit of beauty, and yet it's very hard to say what you mean by the thing beauty if it's not attached to objects. So one of the great things about moral philosophy, it tries to pin down what you can say which is at least not true, but very few people read it, and fiction, to me anyway, is a way of sometimes exploring some of the same choices, some of the same ideas through demonstration and through narrative. So I actually was thinking quite consciously about that idea when I started, but then the trick, at least for me, if you're writing fiction, is to let go of the purely theoretical like that and try and let the thing have some flow. And it's always a difficult thing because you do have these ideas that you kind of want to explore. At the same time, you want the people in the book to have what we think of as freedom somehow, even though it doesn't really make sense in fiction, but it's true. Some kind of free will, some free movement. So that was the whole thing for me. That's why I gave it an essay title and then kind of, I guess, made a populated mess instead of writing an essay. I wanted to try and see if I could talk about the same ideas in a different medium.
Thanks.
Hi, Zadie. As an art teacher, I was very interested to hear their opposing views of Howard and Monty on Rembrandt, and I'm just curious to know, because it didn't really shine through, but what your particular view was on Rembrandt fine art in general, and are you a more idealist like Monty or cynical like Howard, or...
Yeah, people are always asking me my real views about things in books. I think maybe my problem is I don't have many real views. That might be the serious issue, and I find it much easier to kind of play things through other people. But no, I think definitely writing the book, I would take odds with Howard's opinion that Rembrandt didn't have an extraordinary talent. And when I finished the book, I treated myself and went to see the Rembrandt Caravaggio in Amsterdam, and to me anyway, it was, I don't get many religious experiences, but it was really extraordinary. But I like to think that Howard, he might disguise it, but he'd probably have a similar experience. Wouldn't tell you about it though.
Hi, this question is for both of you. I once asked someone what their, and I apologize if this sounds slightly redundant, how in their process did they feel that they were the conduit for an idea to come through, or if they felt that they worked on every little item. And I had the pleasure of asking Octavia Butler that, and she said that she worked on every single thing. And I wanted to know, for the both of you, do you feel like you're the conduit to an idea that is out there in the cosmos, or that it's something that...
Are you a conduit for the cosmos? That's the question.
Yes. No,
my apologies.
I would say that I think, and everybody is probably different on this one, but for me, I think it's a combination of both. I think you hear something or you feel something, and you have something that really wants to speak, I guess, for want of better terms, and you have to, and it keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps bugging you and keeps pressuring you. But then the actual, and that I think allows you to put out a lot of stuff. That stuff, I feel like, for me at least, that comes out is not very good and not very interesting to read. I think the interesting to read part, the not so fun part to do, is to work on it. And, again, for me, that's the only way that it will get to a point where I feel like, okay, now I can give it to someone else to read. So for me, honestly, a combination of both things.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
I'd like to thank both of you for a wonderful evening. I'm wondering, Zadie, how you feel about the film adaptation I saw of White Teeth on public TV.
I suppose I feel like a lot of things, the public aspect of my writing, almost entirely divorced from it. And I don't think that would make any difference if it were wonderful or if it was very terrible. Even, I don't know about Uzo, but even seeing the book in a hardcover on a shelf in a store is like looking at some kind of alien being. It doesn't feel connected to me. So when I saw the TV show, I kind of watched it through my fingers, as did my mother in our living room. But I never saw it again, and my memories of it are very vague, to be honest, and I don't own it, so it seems like a kind of a strange thing that happened in a different time. I do remember feeling most about it that it made Willesden look very beautiful, and for this I was very grateful. That was my strongest feeling.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.